The late summer has such a specific vibe to it. I think as soon as August kind of appears, it's unexpected. It's not what we thought was going to happen, because at the beginning of summer, it seemed like an endless stretch of time, an endless stretch of possibilities, and that, everything was kind of good, exciting, and happy. And I think late summer brings with it a lot of feelings of finality, and honestly, there's a specific vibe to being outside and having the sun be so heavy and so beating down on you. There's like this feverishness to your thoughts and your experience of this thick, humid, heavy air. It's very suffocating. It has such a specific vibe to it. And these are my recommendations. These are my book recommendations for that specific late summer feverish sun sickness kind of feeling. I hope you know what I'm talking about, because it's so real for me. And I don't know if that's a relatable thing at all, but these books really have that kind of quality to them. I'm hoping the quotes that I picked out to tell you about are gonna really illustrate the specific vibe that I mean. It's so, to me, so specific to the end of summer and to like August as it just kind of barrels on. That specific like hallucinative, hyper conscious, almost like the kinds of thoughts, the kinds of musings you may have, or you may feel that are kind of afflicted upon you by the ridiculous, like oppressive heat of the day. I think it's such a specific vibe, and I love it in literature. And I think these books, this is a like across all kinds of genres. I think these books are really kind of perfect for that in one way or another. Before I start off my official recommendations, I'm going to talk about Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. I started this book literally yesterday, so I haven't finished. I'm like not even halfway through actually, but this book is so exemplary of the kind of vibe that I'm talking about. This is not a novel. This is not really something you can compare to other things. It's one of its own type of thing. It's like a meditation confessional, but it's not, like, who knows? It's like fictionalized. I don't know. It feels like nothing I've ever read before. In this book, Clarice Lispector is trying to capture the present. It's very stream of consciousness. It's so different from anything I've ever read. I don't even know if you can call it prose. It's not really prose. It's not really poetry either. It's something very much from the first person perspective. It's almost like she manages to capture actually how thoughts work in your head, and but not in a way that you can typically capture with words. And I think her project is trying to capture that in words, which is difficult, and she talks about that as well in this book. There's a lot of passages about how you can't really put words to it. She's trying to, in some way or another. It's a lot about like time and just many things in life. It's such a strange book, but I think that first person stream of consciousness is so exemplary of the specific late summer like headiness that I'm talking about here. I'm gonna read you a little passage. This is really unlike anything I've ever read. I'm gonna recommend it right now. I know I haven't finished it yet, but this is gonna become my new obsession. I've never read Lispector before. This is my first Lispector. I suspect that I suspect that it's gonna be on my channel often enough, because I'm completely obsessed, because nobody writes like this. And there's even a quote like early on where she's like, this is not a book because nobody writes like this. It's true, nobody writes like this. This is something so different. This is so deeply philosophical, but actually, like, I think she's capturing something that we talk a lot about in continental philosophy, that very singular experience of the self, but not only the self, not the self in like a referential way or like in a second layer of perception way, like that first person perception, that self that is currently perceiving. That's like impossible to capture in words to begin with. Like, we know that that's like not accessible to us by any scientific methods or by any even reasoning can't really do that for us. So it's like something so unique and different, and I think I'm a bit scared, because I don't think I've ever like encountered something that was so close to it. Does that make sense? Like it itself. She talks about the instant. I wish I could read this in Portuguese. She talks about the instant moment now, kind of. So it's also a lot about time, and I think in a way that Heidegger wishes. No, I'm kidding. That's a bold statement. Sorry. I'm sorry. But I think like really this is so much more philosophical than we can than we've acknowledged. I don't know, have people, of course people have acknowledged that. I don't know much about Clarice Lispector. I literally recently heard about her for the first time and I've been dying to read her. I found this book at the bookstore yesterday and I picked it up and immediately started reading it, and I'm just so astounded because the value of this is just, oh man, it's so fun to read something that is so completely unique and different than anything that has ever been done before. But let me read you a little passage and stop like gushing about it. I think this little passage really captures that specific late summer dark vibe that I'm talking about here. Now it's day and suddenly again Sunday in an unexpected eruption. Sunday is a day of echoes, hot, dry, and everywhere, buzzings of bees and wasps, cries of birds, and the distance of paced hammer blows. Where do the echoes of Sunday come from? I who loathe Sunday because it's hollow. I who want the most primary thing because it's the source of generation. I who long to drink water at the source of the spring. I who am all of this must by fate and tragic destiny only know and taste the echoes of me because I cannot capture the me itself. That's so philosophically loaded. Okay. I am in a stupefying, trembling, marvel expectation, my back turned to the world, and somewhere the innocent squirrel escapes. Anyways, you will be hearing about Lispector a lot on my channel. I can just forewarn you now, but this is exactly the thing I'm talking about. I think this is like the perfect summer book. I'm gonna start out by recommending this even though I haven't finished it, so technically I can't fully vouch for my own recommendation, but I have a feeling about it. I'm just gonna go with it. My next recommendation, pretend that this is The Stranger and not The Fall. However, of course, read The Fall. It's actually my favorite Camus. I haven't read everything by him, not even close, but The Fall is my favorite. I'm just gonna recommend you The Stranger, which is kind of his most popular work, and surely you've read it before. I don't know, maybe you haven't. I'm still gonna recommend it to you because I think, hear me out, look at this sentence. I have all my notes on my laptop. I'm just gonna read it out to you. So The Stranger by Camus, there's a specific line. When I first read this, I might have been like 16, maybe a little older, and I have an Instagram post with this line and with a picture. I'll put the picture up here that I think really, I don't know, captures the vibe. First, let me tell you a little bit about The Stranger. The Stranger follows a character called Marceau who is very indifferent and unfeeling about the world around him and about his relations to other humans. Honestly, a little bit about himself as well. He's kind of this person who lacks meaning and doesn't really believe in meaning at all. And the book isn't really plot driven. It's really like a lot of like inner thoughts rambling, which I think is kind of the general vibe of a lot of these books. But the kind of events of the book start in the very beginning of the book when he kills someone, kind of unexpectedly, kind of randomly, on like a beach in Algeria. Is it in Algeria? I think so. He kills someone, and there's this sentence in kind of the scene where he kills someone, which is early on, and it's, I knew that I had shattered the harmony of the day, the exceptional silence of a beach where I'd been happy. No spoilers or anything, but in the book, like, this is the event that kind of sets off a bunch of things, or really the whole premise of the book. Let me read it to you again with the following sentence right after, and you'll kind of maybe understand what I mean. Maybe, I don't know. Do I know what I mean? I knew that I had shattered the harmony of the day, the exceptional silence of a beach where I'd been happy. Then I fired 4 more times at the motionless body where the bullets lodged without leaving a trace. I think that particular scene really captures that like hot sun beating down on you, like maybe the sort of unexpectedness of the thoughts that kind of enter your mind, and just a sort of like urgency to get out of there, or I don't even know, there's just such a strange like sun like heat induced crazy, I think, that happens in the summer, in the late summer, and I think that The Stranger really captures that. Next up is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is a sci-fi novel that puts the speculative in speculative fiction. I love sci-fi that actually speculates. This particular book, it follows a woman who goes in with a research team on an expedition sent by the government to this like unknown Area X type place, and it's like this huge mystery to the government. Like, they don't know how it like came to be or why it's expanding and all that kind of stuff, so they send these research teams to like observe it, write down notes, like bring back, they want to figure out what it is basically. And you follow the protagonist, an unnamed narrator who goes in with a team of other people with other specialties, and pretty much all you know is like her first person POV of like as they go in pretty early, and pretty much most of the book takes place in Area X, inside Area X, and there's something like off about it, but you don't really know what it is, and neither does the character. Like nobody really knows what it is, but you kind of get this gorgeous like immersive opportunity to like explore it with them. I don't know if I'm doing this book justice. I'm not going to tell you more because I think this is one of those books that you just should surrender to and read by yourself. There's a kind of unnamed, unspoken tension that carries the book through. So you as a reader, me personally, I read it in one sitting, could not put it down. I think it's brilliant. I think this book is so brilliant. While you're in Area X, there's this like very uncomfortable, strange, off-putting feeling. Like you're kind of just, everything is kind of off-putting about this place and the nature that is in it. It has a lot of like nature horror almost elements to it. It's so immersive, very real. Feels like sun sickness, like being in the burning hot sun for way too long, that kind of hallucinative state. As far as nature writing goes, that kind of has a sun vibe to it. In the black water with the sun shining at midnight, those fruits shall come ripe, and in the darkness of that which is golden shall split open to reveal the revelation of the fatal softness in the earth. But let me give you like another quote that is maybe a bit more normal, which is, we all live in a kind of continuous dream, I told him. When we wake, it is because something, some event, some pinprick even, disturbs the edges of what we've taken as reality. I love this book. It's so weird and strange and perfect. Perhaps my most normal recommendation on this entire list is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I think this is one of the great classics that's like actually a really good novel. It has such a good story. It's writing about wealth. It's writing about the human desire for more, like greed and my eczema, sorry. The human desire for more and how we can never really be satisfied. And it gives such a scathing commentary on like the high class, I suppose, or high society from the 1920s in America. So if you're interested in any of that, I think super interesting. I think it's such a clever one. I think it's so fun because it takes place during the summer in New York among such a specific vibe and era in time that it's just a delight to read. And I think this is one of those classics that gets better with reads. So the more you read it, the more interesting, or I don't know, it's one of those few books that kind of has that. It's like deceptively simple, in my opinion. I know a lot of people think this is like an overrated classic. I hate this cover, by the way, I'm so sorry. I know people think this is overrated. Me personally, I don't, but I haven't read it in years. But I still think I'll love it. And so with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grow in fast movies, I had that familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. So that's a quote pretty early on, right? That feeling of like newness and endless possibility is very much present at the beginning of the book. And then, you know, as events unfold and as the story unfolds, it just becomes more and more tainted, like a tainted summer day with like a lot of tragic elements. And I mean, I guess most people know this story, have seen the movies, or have read the book, but you know, no spoilers or anything, but it definitely becomes dark as it goes on. My next book recommendation is Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. This is a novel in verse, a retelling of Heracles. Anne Carson is a mythologist, she's a classicist, and she writes her prose is unbelievable, her poetry is unbelievable, she's endlessly intelligent and beautiful as a human. Like the way she writes is just unreal. This book is a coming of age novel. It's very painful, it's very sad, it's very filled with, I don't know, so much musings about being a person and growing up. There are so many lovely quotes in this book, but I'm going to read you one specific one. Actually, two specific ones. It was very bright this morning, unexpectedly clear like a summer day, and I looked up and saw a shadow of a bird go flashing across the leaves of the acacia, as if on a screen projected, and it seemed to me that I was standing on a hill. I have labored up to the top of this hill. Here I am. It has taken about half my life to get here, and on the other side the hill slopes down. Behind me somewhere, if I turned around, I could see my daughter beginning to climb hand over hand like a little gold animal in the morning sun. That is who we are, creatures moving on a hill at different distances. It's actually such a beautiful book. It has so many treasures, so many beautiful quotes. And I first read it a couple of summers ago, so I have very summer memories attached to reading that book. And I think that kind of like heavy sadness is so typical of late summer as well. And my last recommendation is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is a gorgeous, long, beautiful, high, how do you say, big scope novel that follows many families, and not many, but a couple of families and a lot of generations of people in those families. This is Steinbeck's magnum opus. It is kind of the book that he wanted to write his whole career, and everything else he says was practice for this book. It really is magnificent. It's so magnificent. This is set in the Salinas Valley in California, which to me has a little bit of a summer vibe to it, I suppose. But there's something about this that it's so summer to me. I've seen this on other people's summer recommendations list, so I don't think I'm the only person who feels that this is the kind of book that you read in the summer. But this is, I've spoken about it before on my channel. This is definitely one of the best classics I've ever read, one of my favorites. It's such a saga. It's such a tale. The scope of it, the characters, there are many characters, but they're all very sort of introduced at the perfect time. They all have these just interesting character traits, and these things are really fleshed out. There's a lot of value to this one. I know this is something that's going to be even more enlightening on a reread, like upon a reread. So this is one of those classics I think that's just better and better with time and with age, and there's something very special about that. I'm gonna read you a little quote. This book is a lot about like evil. It's very biblical. It's kind of based on Abel and Cain. These characters are kind of helpless to the cycles and the kind of the prophecy of who they are and which families they were born into and what their parentage was, and all these characters are kind of helplessly recreating these cycles of kind of generational trauma. It is such a book. It's such a primordial novel. I'm gonna go ahead and read my little quote that I put aside, which is about time, which is one of my favorite things in the world to read about in literature or anything, because it's kind of the thing that concerns me the most in my daily life, I suppose. Time interval is a strange and contradictory matter in the mind. It would be reasonable to suppose that a routine time or an eventless time would seem interminable. It should be so, but it is not. It is the dull, eventless times that have no duration whatever. A time splashed with interest, wounded with tragedy, crevassed with joy. That's the time that seems long in the memory. And this is right when you think about it. Eventlessness has no post to drape duration on. From nothing to nothing is no time at all. Steinbeck's prose is very simple and like basic and readable, and I would recommend it a lot for beginners. There's something so like stark about it that I really appreciate. It's not the most beautiful prose you'll ever read. In that sense, I don't think there's like that many quotes in the book that you might find like super quotable or anything, but his prose is very effective in my opinion and very American. There's something about him and this book specifically that I really appreciate, and this book is just fantastic, and also has one of my favorite female characters that I've ever read, and there's something almost feminist about it that is very interesting, and I highly recommend it. So that was my list. I hope you guys like this list. Please let me know if you read any of them, and please advise me on Lispector, and if I made a mistake choosing this as my first read, I highly doubt it, but when I finish this, what should be my next Lispector? If you've read Lispector, what's your favorites? Like, I want to know everything about her now. Bye!